Okay, good afternoon. We do have our president currently en route. However, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to District Council Carmel for a brief introduction.
Thank you, General Manager McElhaney. So, yeah, apparently the president is dealing with something, but we'll be back fairly soon. Vice President Scott is ill, and we can address her participation in the meeting. In the meantime, what I think we need to do is the three directors that are there should pick a presiding officer to run the meeting until President Gray arrives. So that's where we are. And then we'll run through the 54-953 rigmarole to get Vice President, where am I? Vice President Scott into the meeting. So right now, if you could pick a presiding officer, we can move the meeting forward.
I would move that Director Dean preside over this meeting.
Okay, it is 1:09. We're calling the meeting to order.
Wait, we'll need to take a vote on that.
On what? Me starting the meeting?
Waiting for Harry to make a second.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily a motion, but I'll second the motion that.
It was a motion.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Well, then I'll second the motion that our previous president, Dean, be the acting president.
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
2 ayes.
Vice President Scott,
She's
and
not
Director Dean.
Aye. Okay, so are we going to go ahead and vote to allow Vice President Scott to participate, or are we going to wait for President Gray?
The actual process is that Vice President Scott will announce the reason that we're going through this, and from there we'll vote on it. But the first thing is for Vice President Scott to announce that she's ill, and then the other component of that is that she has to announce if there's anyone over 18 in the room with her, and then clearing that, we can bring her in after a vote. Okay.
Vice President Scott?
Yes, good morning, Acting President Dean. This morning, I decided I would test to make sure that this stuff that I have is not COVID, and oh, guess what? It was positive. So I decided not to attend the meeting today, but I am requesting that you allow me to attend via Zoom. I have no one over the age of 18 years in this room.
Okay. Can I have a motion to allow Vice President Scott to attend via Zoom?
I move that we have Vice President Scott attend on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Carmel, since she is the Vice President, can she run the meeting from Zoom until President Gray arrives?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay. Vice President Scott?
Yes.
It's on you now.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like everyone to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have established a quorum, and we are waiting on our president to attend, but he will be here very soon. And I would recommend that when he gets here, if he does have a president's report, we go ahead and allow that to happen out of order. In the meantime, is there anything on the agenda that anyone would like to move or change the order of?
No.
Director Scott, may I?
Yes.
know if it's my place to ask something to be moved, but we do have Mr. Lynn present and his item is second on the agenda. I'm not sure if the board would mind maybe bumping that up ahead of the existing 4A.
Is there anyone who objects to moving this agenda item up to the first agenda item?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's go then to agenda item 2, which is board member communication. Is there anyone who would like to make a statement regarding activities related to the CCSD?
Director Thomas.
Thank you. And Ms. Dodson, I don't know if that document is available to put on the screen, but just wanted to share. I think July 16, looking at the entrance, the south entrance to the Bluff Trail. I don't know if you can see lower left, that the parking area has been a lake ever since the winter, and it just has not cleared up. I sent a note to Public Works and to Bruce Gibson. Yesterday, they put out the no parking signs, and the screen on the right, this morning they were out there grading, and I went by to thank them and sent a note to Mr. Roberts at Public Works and Mr. Fixler, and just in the spirit of, we always hear the county never does anything for us. Well, let's make pinpointed requests and make the case. And so this is, at least we've got this parking lot graded, and we're out of the mud for now. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. Had an emergency which is okay. Everybody's fine. And I had to get some matters cleared up in wake of a fender bender. So anyway, maybe General Manager McMahon could tell me where we are.
Absolutely, President Gray. Welcome back. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear everybody's safe. We just made a motion to have Vice President Scott in your stead.
Mhm.
We did board member communications. The agenda review, we completed and moved agenda item 4B to 4A because Mr. Lynn is here waiting.
Yeah,
And we went through the legal process of allowing Vice President Scott to attend remotely. And
Good.
You're caught up.
So at this point, I assume the duties of the chair as president from Vice President Scott. I see you up there. Here's to a speedy recovery. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
And I guess we go to the public comment at this point. Good. I've got one slip from Christine Heinrichs. Oh, wait, that's 4A. I'm sorry. Is there anybody who wants to speak? Oh, yeah, here, I got a piece. I do have a slip from Christine Heinrichs for public comment. Thank you. So you can please come forward.
There, thank you. Glad everything is settled and we're here. And I wish Vice President Scott a rapid recovery. Take Paxlovid, it works well. Yes, for public comment, I would ask the board to please provide a report on how both of Cambria's fire engines came to be out of service at the same time during fire season. While it was generous of Paso Robles to provide one of its fire engines during fire season, all engines should be available in working order. Please explain what happened to lead Cambria to this point and what is being done to assure that it never happens again. And I saw this morning that it's possible to get an electric vehicle fire engine, which is now being tested in Los Angeles. So that might assist us in lower costs and keeping our fire engines in service. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present who want to do public comment? This is again on items not on the agenda, but under our purview. Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Ms. Dickinson?
Thank you, President Gray. And ditto on the speedy recovery, Director Scott. Sorry to hear you're ill. I have been quite disturbed about this written public comments. It seems to me that this board has chosen to be even less transparent to the public than it has even before. It seemed about as less transparent as it could possibly be. And so I read Mr. Ober's comment in written comments, and I'm going to read it. He says, public comments are just that, for the public. They are not just as input to elected officials. They should be read aloud to be heard by all attending, just as verbally presented comments are heard by all. So it's not just a select group, the board. These are public comments to be made for the public, as they should be. And taking that away only makes you all look really bad, in my opinion. And it just isn't fair. I just really am not understanding what is going on. I really am not. And now you're choosing to have one meeting a month and even less reporting. I see the general manager's letter now has way less information than it used to have, which was actually too much. Now it's too little. So it'd be nice if we could find some kind of middle of the ground transparency as to what really is going on in this district. I know that when I find things that don't sit well with me, I won't just sit there and take it. I'll go to the agencies and check with the agencies, the regulatory agencies, whether permits are required, which I found where 2 permits are required when this district has said they are not. So, you know what, folks, it's a little hard to take, and it's probably with a mixture of other reasons why I've really not been attending these meetings. It's getting pretty pathetic. And I would hope that you would relook at some of these decisions, because reading public records into the public record from the public is really important. And if you care about the public, you would make a new, I think, change this decision. I agree with Ms. Heinrichs on the fire trucks. That's shocking, and it should never have happened. And especially when we're in one of the highest of the fire hazard areas in the state. What happened? And so please, let's get our act together, CCSD. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Mr. McElhaney, you wanted to comment on any things that were said about the fire engines and so forth?
Thank you, President Gray.
Yeah.
Logically, anything mechanical can break down, especially when you have 2 fire engines that are expensive pieces of apparatus, that their costs to replace are in the $2.5 million range, and we have 2 engines that are coming on the end of their life cycle. Mechanical things break down, as do biological. We have one of our directors that caught COVID. These things happen. We had slack adjusters in our brake system that were beginning to fail. Brakes are an important safety mechanism for a fire engine that weighs 20 tons, so it went out of service. The second engine that was in operation that day to go around and check the lots for weed abatement compliance had a fuel injector malfunction, so it lost power. These things happen, and there is no way to prevent them other than, keep up on your daily maintenance and pray that these things don't happen and become a perfect storm. But if we don't want ever to have a fire engine break down, then we need to invest on 2 new engines, which is $5 million that will come out of the reserves, and place them in the front line and have 2 backup engines. That there's no way around it. These things happen. We're not driving our mom and dad's Chevys that you can bang the starter with a hammer and get it back in operation, when these engines not only have to drive around the town, but they also have very specific and technological pumping mechanisms to them. So there's multiple things that have to be in operation for these engines to be in service, and these things happen.
Thank you. I mean, it's worth noting too, I mean, you can correct me on this, but we have we have mutual aid arrangements with all the fire departments, not just Paso Robles, that if this sort of thing happens, they are, that we have a fairly large pool of other fire departments to draw from, I would assume.
Absolutely, President Gray.
Routinely, yeah.
And when both of those engines went down, our fire department wasn't out of service. They took the water tender that has pumping capabilities for a structure fire. It only seats 2 individuals. So we had 2 individuals in the water tender and a pickup utility truck in tow with all of their gear. So we still had 4 firefighters responding to emergencies with a water tender that was capable of pumping a fire. It's just a 20-year-old water tender that seats 2, and it's not ideal to have your other 2 firefighters in a pickup truck in tow. But kudos to the fire department for adapting and overcoming. But again, these things happen.
And I just want to make a short comment, just to clarify to the public about public comment that's written. It is posted on the, right on the same page as the agenda, right as soon as we get it, basically. And it's there for the permanent record. So the only thing that's missing is the actual physical reading of the letter or the comment by our secretary during the meeting, but otherwise is fully available to the public. It's not just available to the board. People should know that. Anybody else have any questions or comments just coming out of this? Thank you. If there's no further public comment. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Director Farmer, yeah.
Thank you, President Gray, and I'm glad you're able to be here. I just want to ask, and since I'm really an admirer of Chief Berkey, I'm trying to recall if, in fact, when this incident happened with both fire trucks going down at the same time, if he gave a fairly thorough account as to what took place. I mean, as you just did, which might have, as you said, these things can happen. It's like both spouses getting sick at one time, so to speak. I'm wondering if we had gotten more clarification as to exactly what did take place. I don't recall if he did that, and that may be just a fault of my memory. But did he present some, like I said, some concrete reasoning as to what happened with both fire trucks?
He did, Director Farmer. So one of them is with the slack adjusters, and that is a mechanism for the braking system that helps the cams and the brakes apply pressure. And so our fire engines aren't really designed for this type of hilly area. These are type 1 fire engines. Our firefighters like to call them pavement princesses because they like to be on flat ground, rolling in city-like neighborhoods, and we have very hilly areas. So that does take a lot of wear and tear on the engines. And so the slack adjusters failed. The brakes actually failed on one of the fire engines that was parked on a hill, and it began to roll with not on purpose. And so that immediately was taken out of service. The next engine had a electrical fuel injection issue and failure, which prevented the engine to get appropriate power to drive up the hills. And so these happened literally on the same day when both engines were out doing lot inspections.
All right. Well, I certainly, I guess we could say alarmed, but grateful that we're still able to get the situation resolved with Pastor Robles. And I appreciate your explanation right there. And like you say, it's just a coincidence. And I personally don't think it's a reflection on the quality of our fire department or anything having to do with that. So thanks.
Exactly. Thank you, Director Farmer.
Director Dean.
It was either on the website or in the general manager or the fire chief's letter,
Right.
because I read it on the website shortly after this happened, why these 2 fire engines were out of order.
Mhm.
And I believe it was on social media too. So I
It
knew.
was to anybody who had the email feed, email service, or what you call it, it was a separate letter, a special letter.
Yeah.
General manager wrote, yeah.
Yeah, Director Dean and President Gray, we immediately blasted out there because I'm sure a lot of our citizens are curious why Pastor Robles fire engine is driving around our town. So we didn't want to create any panic or anything like that. So the minute the engines went out of service, we did an immediate blast out to the community to let them know if they see a Pastor Robles fire engine, it's on behalf of us, we're grateful for it because they were able to put us back in service.
And that same notice did say what was wrong with the fire engines.
Yes. Mhm.
And if I can make one more comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Public comment can be read by anyone on behalf of the person making the public comment. We've done that before where someone wasn't able to attend, but wanted to make sure the public heard their comment. They asked someone else to read it. It's I think that, we didn't used to read public comment prior to COVID.
That's right.
I think that's when it started. And I think some of the reason was because when we're making our confidential administrative assistant read these public comments, she's not reading them in the same tone of voice or with the same expression as a person otherwise might want it read, if that makes sense. Whereas if someone asks someone else to communicate it for them and they understand what that person's trying to say, then that person can read the public comment for them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And Ms. Dickinson actually did that in her comment. Another reason for not having comments read by Ms. Dodson is that we don't really know when we open up the file how long it is. And there have been cases where the reading of the comment went on beyond 3 minutes. And to enforce the 3-minute rule, we'd have to cut off somebody's written comment at a certain point, and that's really awkward. And it's a good reason for if people want to read someone else's public comment, they have the same 3-minute restriction, but it's a little easier to deal with rather than us rather than when we're actually reading it and trying to get through it, and suddenly you basically cut it off. So a lot of reasons why we didn't do it in the old days, and it started with COVID, and we're just going back to the traditional practice. Anyway, we should move on to our business items. 4B, which I'll read out and welcome our prospective new landlord here, Mr. Lin. The title of this item is discussion and consideration of termination of the general lease for Cambria Village Square Shopping Center Building 1, 1316 Tampson Street, Suite 201, Cambria. Adoption of Resolution 25-2024 approving a 10-year lease with Lin Investments, LLC, for the Cambria Community Services District Administrative Offices located at 2150 Main Street, Cambria, from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2034, and authorizing the general manager to execute the lease and oversee the transition to the new office, and adoption of Resolution 26-2024 amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 preliminary budget. Quick question I have for Mr. Carmel: does that require two motions, the budget adjustment and the lease? I think he's nodding his head.
All right. Yes, it would require separate motions.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's two motions ahead of us. One is the actual approval of the lease. The other one is the approval of the budget adjustment for the, as you'll see, moving expenses. I'll turn this over to General Manager McElhaney.
Thank you, President Gray. You've already introduced the item fairly well. Just a little bit of background. So we've been, how long have we been in our facility? 1998. And so for 26 years, that building has had some significant wear and tear. Just in the last year and a half of working within the CCSD in that office, we've had somewhere between 7 and 8 water leaks with a damaged flat screen TV, damaged computer system, damaged alarm system, multiple damaged ceiling tiles, carpets, mold, mildew, you name it. And so while we appreciate our landlord giving us a good run there, it's time to move on. So we started looking at other facilities to rent, and we just happened to engage Mr. Lin in conversation, and those medical offices are open. The office that we chose was a smaller office. It will be a little bit tighter, but we have slimlined our staff and trimmed it a bit. And so we went through and took a look at the office. It's fully remodeled. There's minimal changes that we'll need to make as the CCSD to make it accommodating, for staff. The monthly price is significantly less. We've gone down to $1,952 monthly. That includes some of the property taxes and the maintenance around the facility. The interior of the rental space will be on us to maintain the mopping, the cleaning of the facilities. So we did put in a budget adjustment for $25,000. That's on the high side. We just weren't sure exactly how much it's going to cost to move us. Our facilities and resources department is going to step up and help us with as much as they can. There will be some technological needs with our IT company CIO to move some of our equipment over there. look at some of the security for our computer systems. There may be some new furniture that has to be purchased just based on the size of the offices are a little bit different. So Denise, myself, and Haley have some larger desks currently that we will surplus or hand them off to other staff. But essentially, that is what we're asking for today.
Before opening up the questions from the board, ask Ms. Dodson, if Vice President Scott wants to speak, could you give me a little high sign? Yeah, because I don't have the screen in front of me. Anyway, first of all, questions from the board for General Manager McElhaney, and I guess if with your permission, Mr. Lynn, you could take the podium and might help if you want to help out. Is that okay? Well, yeah, is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there are any questions.
Well, just to clarify, I'm John Lynn, the owner of the building, and the reason for my presence here is just in case there were questions, I wanted to be able to address those things that someone else might not have the background to do.
That seems fair. I mean, I just want to make sure you're comfortable doing that.
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, questions, Director Dean.
Parking. We've all driven down through town when we've had Oktoberfest and all of these other things. And I know there's very limited parking directly behind the building. So where will all of the staff be parking?
That's a great question, Director Dean. We actually met with Mr. Lynn this morning. The medical, he is the owner of all of those parking lots. And so all of those spaces are dedicated to that building. There is some parking that has a medical building markings on it. So staff's plan is to, obviously we'll get there early in the morning. So we're going to take the back parking lot and park away from the building and allow those spaces for visitors to the medical building. I spoke with Mr. Lynn, and there is a row of parking that we are going to maybe restripe and put CCSD/medical building or medical offices or tenant, however, we'll figure that piece out, but we'll have some parking dedicated to the CCSD. Additionally, we see a lot less foot traffic at the district offices now that we've automated our billing processes and systems and web-based items. So we haven't seen as much foot traffic lately, but we will dedicate some parking spaces for that. Did I detail that well, Mr.?
Anything you want to add?
No, I think Matt said it just as I would have.
Yeah, my question on parking is related to that. Is how many people will be working there? How many staffers will be normally working there, coming there at 8 or 8:30 in the morning?
I think max will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
Max would be 6.
Okay. Any Dr. Farmer?
I'm not quite so sure exactly what direction this conversation is going in right now, but if we're expressing concerns about how staff will be impacted, my two main concerns weren't so much about parking, but I went over to the offices there and I looked in, and it seemed like the space was rather confined, and then there wasn't much natural light. So I did take the time to converse with both Ms. Dodson and General Manager McElhaney, and they assure me that there will be plenty of light there and there's enough space. And those are my two concerns. So I feel very hopeful for the staff because they're feeling very positive with the move as well. Mr. Lynn, if I could just ask you how, if you were going to assess those where they're moving in with regard to the availability of light, how would you describe it?
Well, when the previous tenant moved in, which was Tenant Health, ironically, Tenant, we did a complete remodel of the entire first floor to accommodate them at their design, working with our architect here in town. And so they were there for a total of 1.5 years and in a very spotty way only. And so for 3.5 years since that, nobody has been in there. And so it's virtually unused, newly remodeled space. And there were very adequate light put into those spaces because those spaces were to be used as exam rooms for doctors and patients and so on. So there's plenty of light. There won't be any lack of visibility in the spaces there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, maybe Mr. McElhaney, you can explain the slideshow we're putting up there, because that shows you a lot of what we're talking about with the interior lighting.
I hadn't
space.
seen that.
I think you just took some pictures today.
Yes, we went
Yeah.
by, thank you, President Gray. We went by today and took some photos. So this would, I believe this to be Miss Fritz's office. As you can see, there's a sink and a counter there because this was an exam room. That may be some of the things we changed to open it up for a little more space, maybe get rid of the sink unless Denise wants to wash her hands often. So that room has a nice window and lighting. And then Miss Dodson, that's the next. This is Mrs. Dodson's office. Same thing, same type of setup with a good amount of lighting. And then this is the long strip office that doesn't do it justice in terms of size, but there's several windows there and several different areas in which we can apply workstations. A little tight, but it will do the job. And then my office is up a bit, and this one's a bit of a dungeon. There's no windows because it was an exam room.
No sink.
Yeah, no sink.
There's no serving drinks in that office.
No. But what we'll do is we'll add some. Director Farmer gave me a good idea. We'll add some plants that will rotate through the offices. So we'll rotate them through the sunny offices and then into my office to give it a little bit of an outdoor vibe. But I'm okay with it, and it saves the district financially. And I think overall it's a better environment. Our lobby here, we are going to make a few changes there, but we'll probably put a TV out there in the lobby and have a slideshow of CCSD history or something like that while folks are waiting.
And Harry, you can narrate it too.
Yes.
Anyway, any questions? Vice President Scott, did you have any questions?
No, good.
Okay, great. Director Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray. A couple things, and first, I just want to say no wet bar jokes coming from me.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I won't start the wet bar jokes. Yeah. And it's worth pointing out with the 3% escalation in 10 years at the end of this lease period, it'll still be $240 a month less than the current rent is today. So thank you, Mr. Lynn, for a great rate for these fine offices. And yeah, I've been, visiting the dentist and the medical center there dozens of times. I've always found parking in that space, within the 2 rows behind the medical center. I'm confident this will sort itself out. It is tighter than the current, Village Square offices, but I'm confident that will sort out. One question on page 8 in the lease, that the CCSD will agree to maintain the leased area. Of course, we maintain inside the fence. I didn't notice in there, but what are the provisions? One of the reasons the staff really is glad to move out of the existing offices is the frequency of water damage. And so give us a bit of a feel for your planned maintenance for the roof, the upper level, that sort of thing.
Sure, happily. Well, first of all, this is on the first floor. There's an entire floor between that one and the roof. Dr. Griffith's people above you would be catching all the water before you get it. So at least it'll be processed first. But all joking aside, just a few years ago, we replaced the entire roof on the top of that building. The flat portion is covered with a very thick plastic membrane that was done by Qualino Roofing out of San Luis. And the rest of the roof, all the angled parts of the roof were done with normal roof sheeting, and by a gentleman here in town who's been doing roofing for 35, 40 years, who's retired now, but probably that job forced him into retirement. No, I'm kidding. But so there's really, I don't think any way that there's going to be any kind of moisture problems there from above that space. I think you can relax.
Okay.
And Director Thomas, I spoke with Mr. Lin, and as a part of our, you'll keep have to remind me what these are again, the triple Ns with the payment includes the exterior maintenance, roofing, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, the insurances and of course, you have your own insurance for your space, but I have insurance on the building, and in addition to that, those triple net charges that are shared by all of the tenants in the building go to pay another kind of insurance as well as maintenance and upkeep of the building and its environment.
An example of the benefits of working with a reputable businessman who cares about the community. So thank you.
Thank you. I do. That's true.
Yeah. Before, I want to make sure Vice President Scott wanted to speak.
Yes.
You go first, then,
Yes.
then Director Dean.
Okay, thank you so much. Two things. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for working so closely with us on this. I do think that this is a much better place for our offices. It's right downtown. It's right in the middle of the village where people can go knock on the door, come in and say hello. What I'd like to ask about that is whether or not you all would consider extending the hours that the office door is unlocked. If that's possible, that would be something that I think would be really important, because that's what we want. We want people to be able to come in and talk with us. So that would be one consideration. But I also think that it's a much more classy building than we have at the time right now. And so I'm really glad that we're planning on doing this as long as the board approves the lease and the agenda item.
Well, thank you for those comments. And as far as the door being open and accessible, both there are two doors, one on the front of the building that leads into the lobby area, which then feeds into the office space that you're talking about here. And in addition, there's another door at the other side of the lobby area that comes from the stairwell and the elevator, which is access to that space. Those anytime the CCSD is there and wants it that way, they can have those doors open. There's no reason why not. It's their space.
Thank you.
And the other part that you're not taking on the rental of, the larger part of that space on the opposite side of the lobby toward the ocean side is still available for rent, and that is locked separately. And so there's no reason why the access to the lobby area and therefore any of the CCSD area would not be always available at your discretion.
Thank you.
Director Dean, yeah.
And that brings up another question. Okay, so you have doors into the lobby from both the back and the front, but does the CCSD office also have their own doorways that lock? Okay. Do you happen to have a floor plan of the side that you're going to be renting? I'm curious, your office, General Manager McElhaney, doesn't have any windows. Is it like does it not share an outside wall anywhere? Is it totally within amongst the rooms? So it's not a place where you can have a window added?
Yeah, Director Dean, unfortunately, there's no way I can punch a window through there. On the opposite side of my wall is I believe it's the lab, correct?
It's the Sierra Vista Hospital Lab, yes. And on another wall is the lobby. And then on yet another wall is the restroom that serves the CCSD area. So there is no access to an outside wall where that office is. That office was originally, when it was designed and rebuilt for tenant health, that what is now the general manager's office was created for X-ray, so it's lined with lead.
Whoa.
Yeah, so he's very well protected.
And everybody else is protected from him, right?
Yeah.
He could scream bloody murder and nobody'll know.
The discussion, any questions? Yeah, the discussion of the space and the additional, you mentioned, Mr. Linden mentioned the additional space is still not rented out. Raises the question of whether at some point, if we want to bring more staff, for instance, staff from utilities or from facilities and resources there, is it feasible? Is there a practical way to expand the rented space that we have without having to get the whole? I think the amount of unrented space is now about several thousand square feet, right? It's pretty large. But what if would it be a way for us to take part of that at some point?
Well, to answer that, we could give it some thought. It is potentially possible. I have to say that I'm in just a few days. You're probably aware that Adventist Health purchased Twin Cities and Sierra Vista hospitals, and they're swallowing that purchase as we speak and digesting it. And we've spoken with the CEO, and she is going to come and talk to us again about the possibility of having a satellite clinic that would be a feeder to those two hospitals, which is what Tenet Health was doing with that space previously. So how much of that space they would want, or if they'll take it, I really don't have an answer for that at this point, but that is a possibility. And there may be more than they would want. I don't know. That's left there. So a portion of that could conceivably be allocated that way for additional administrative staff for the CCSD.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know. Any more questions? I'll open this up to public comment then. I have a comment slip from Christine Heinrichs. Oh, you're 4A, right? Yeah. This is we're still on 4B. I have to keep track of things. Anybody here in attendance want to comment on this item? Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Ms. Dickinson, please proceed.
Thank you. So in regard to what Mr. Lin was just saying, I really have to wonder how well thought out this might be, because having a lead-lined room for x-rays that would actually be within the leased property, the CSD you're all contemplating voting on today, that seems rather odd that you might have something within what you're leasing that Seventh-day Adventists would be very interested in having. And in fact, it's a real pain getting x-rays in Cambria. You can't get one. That was the one place where for a while we all had hoped that was going to be a possibility. But the fact that it's already there, is there not enough space in the other area that you're renting out? I would ask Mr. Lin. And also, who owns the parking lot? Because I know that CSD maintains, if I'm not mistaken, the restroom there. So does the county own the parking lot, Mr. Lin, or the CSD? And if you're thinking about saving money on rent, what President Gray just brought up would be actually adding more space, which would be more rent, because the square footage it's such a big difference in what you already have. I mean, I like this building. I happen to go there quite regularly. I would say that there's one spot when you drive into the driveway to that building, to the west of the wall, which right across is the Redwood Cafe. That is a really tight spot, and you have to be very careful when you drive into that driveway. I don't know, Mr. Lin, if there have been any accidents there, but it's a tight spot. And if you're thinking of put facilities and resources folks there, and trucks going in and out, wow. I mean, I think there's a lot that still has to be thought of. There's a lot here that's been brought up. But I have those questions about who owns the parking lot, how much parking actually will the CCSD eventually take up, because that's a public parking lot as far as I know, not a private parking lot. So if somebody could clear that up, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if Mr. McElhaney wants to clear up the parking lot question. I believe part of it's owned by the county, but doesn't,
If you'd
John,
like,
Mr. Lynn owns
I-
part of it too, right?
I can clarify
Yeah,
that
good,
if you'd
thank you.
like. As far as the parking lot is concerned, the part of the parking lot that is owned by me with the medical building is 3 parking lots as you look south going away from the building. The parking lot that's closest to the building, the next one, and the next one going all the way back to this cross street behind there. Now, if you look to the east, that is toward the Chevron station, toward the public restrooms that are owned and operated by the CCSD, that is a separate and distinct lot, not owned by me, but owned by the CCSD. Behind that lot, further to the east, where there's more parking, is actually owned by Robin's Restaurant. So there are 3 owners of all those parking lots there, but those 3 parking lots that are contiguous to my building are all owned by me.
Thank you. Dr. Dean.
So from the back of the medical building to Center Street,
Yes.
straight back is yours. And between that and the restroom belongs to the CCSD. And on the other side of the restroom belongs to Robbins. Okay, thank you. For some reason, I was thinking all of that part beyond yours belonged to the county.
Most
So
people would not realize that there are all those different things
Yeah.
going on there.
thank you for clarifying that.
As far as the safety issue of getting in and out, I can acknowledge that, although I've owned that building since 2004, and there's not been any accident there since I've owned it. Certainly, if I were bringing big trucks in, and that still occasionally happens, even using those narrow ingress and egress accesses off of Main Street. But the other direction that can be used is to come from Center Street and come across there from Burton Drive. So that's an easier way and much more open in terms of access.
Thank you. Any more public comment or questions?
I'll double check, Director Dean. I'm not sure if the CCSD owns the
I
parking lot.
I think the county owns it.
Correct.
We do maintenance on it. I know that. And we do maintenance on the restrooms. I think the
Restroom.
actual owner is the county.
I believe the county
I
owns
stand
that.
corrected.
But that's, well,
Yeah.
it's very confusing there because I think we do do maintenance on that parking lot, but that's yeah. Anyway, but it's not, but the idea is that your building's parking lot extends pretty far out.
It's very adequate for
Yeah.
the uses of my building.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. If there's no further questions or anything, I'd like to bring this back to the board for consideration. We'll do this in 2 parts. For consideration of the initial item, which is the long one on your agenda, going all the way down to the adoption of Resolution 2624. In other words, just everything up to the budget amendment, and then we can briefly talk about the budget amendment. So I'll take it back to the board for discussion of the lease approval and a motion.
No, go ahead.
Director Thomas.
Okay. This is a long motion, but I will move that the board approve the termination of the lease for the Cambria Village Square Shopping Center and the adoption of Resolution 25-2024 approving a 10-year lease with Lynn Investments, LLC for the Cambria Community Services District Administrative Offices to be located at 2150 Main Street, starting October 1st, 2024.
And
And authorizing
there.
the general manager to execute the lease and oversee the transition to the new office.
there you are. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Farmer, that the aforementioned motion be approved. Could I have a roll call?
Yes, Director Thomas.
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Vice President Scott,
I,
President Gray.
Aye. Now, the second motion, I don't know if we need some small amount of explanation on this. There's a dollar amount involved on the having to do with moving costs and so forth. So maybe General Manager McElhaney, you could just explain
Yeah, thank you,
the
President.
resolution, budget resolution.
Sure. President, great. We're looking for a potential budget adjustment for $25,000. We don't have exact quotes yet. We're looking at some of the things that we may need to change or alter in that office space to include purchasing new desks and furniture that fit that size of office space. There's also some additional monies that will need to be spent with our IT company, CIO, in the transition of all of our computers, security systems, firewalls, things of that nature. On the high side, we picked $25,000, but as frugal as my staff are, we're going to try and keep that at minimal costs in terms of moving. Our facilities and resources department is committed to helping us move, so we won't actually be hiring, or we shouldn't have to hire movers to move the district office. But we will have a period of about a week where the district office will be closed in preparation of that moving. Additionally, we've gone digital with a lot of our record retention, so there will be some costs associated with, destroying old files and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Any public comment on this aspect of the business item?
No.
No, okay. So I'll bring it back to the board for consideration or an motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 26-2024, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 preliminary budget.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
So moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 26-2024, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 preliminary budget. A roll call, please.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. I probably should have asked this question before, but is the reference to the preliminary budget correct, or should it be the final budget? Or we're going to have we have the final budget next week. Is it adequate? In other words, if we amend the preliminary budget, it will simply carry over into the final budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We don't have to redo this. Okay, good.
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Lynn, for answering questions. And we're going to move on to Dr. Farmer.
I just want to make one comment. To me, the most awesome thing about this is the staff is so much happier with this move in the new location, which considering how, despite what other people may think, we have an excellent staff and they deserve the best place possible to do their work. So 2 thumbs up for them.
I'm into that. And we'll move on to Dr. Dean.
And they're close to walk to Lynn's for lunch.
this catty corner across the street there almost. Thank you very much. Yeah. Move on to item 4A. Discussion regarding board meeting and standing committee meeting length and schedules for the calendar year 2025. So my understanding is we would not be taking final action on a schedule. We would be discussing and then giving direction to staff essentially to come back with an actual schedule to vote on. So this is a preliminary look at the issue of there's 2 issues here actually, one going to 1 meeting a month for the board and consolidating the meeting times for the standing committees. So I'll turn it over to Mr. McElhenney.
Thank you, President Gray, and thank you for engaging in this discussion. Staff has been looking at ways to become a little more efficient, and through some conversations at our agenda review with President Gray and Vice President Scott, this was brought forward as a potential discussion topic. Currently, we have 2 boarding meetings a month. That's set up for those 2 board meetings. Often those costs aren't really seen, but the staff time that it takes for our facilities and resources crews to come in and set up everything that you see here is a significant amount of time. Currently, we have 2 meetings a month in which we pay AGP, and we love AGP. They're doing a great job, but at $1,800 a month times two per meeting is an expense. And so what we were looking to do, and then take into consideration staff time for staff reports and putting together agenda packets, and Mrs. Dodson, who spends some late nights getting ready to post the agendas, print the agendas for the board of directors. So what we've considered is trying to make one meeting a month, which will consolidate staff time in terms of attending that one board meeting a month, focusing 1 week on getting our staff reports ready and preparing the agenda, and then allowing the rest of those weeks and the months for staff to focus on district responsibilities. Also, we were looking at committee meetings. Currently, we have 4 committee meetings all on different days of the month. So when you take that in total, in addition to board meetings, that's 6 meetings a month. We had considered one all-day standing committee meeting. Having thought about that more, I think staff would consider or would also be open to cutting that to 2 meetings a month, 2 committee meetings a month, where, for instance, Resource Infrastructure and Finance Committee would meet on a Thursday, and then perhaps another Monday would be Policy and Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. That would shave down to 3 meetings a month. And again, for us, it's more efficient as staff. We tend to be bouncing around quite a bit from meeting to meeting to meeting, and we're happy to do it. But if we can become a little more efficient and allow staff to focus on their daily responsibilities without having to pack up, go to a 2-hour meeting, pack back up, and go back to pick up where they left off work-wise. So we believe this will save the district anywhere between $16,000 and $17,000 a year with the cost of AGP. That's not counting staff time for setup and breakdown. Again, there's also setup and breakdown for committee meetings. So that's what we're bringing up for discussion today.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members or Vice President Scott? I don't want to forget you up there regarding this.
Yes, I do.
Vice President Scott.
Yeah. I would be more in favor of having two committee meetings each day rather than 4 in one day. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Director Dean.
And I agree with Vice President Scott and with the general manager. Right now, we have 2 committees that meet in the mornings, and we have 2 committees that meet in the afternoons. And I think if we were doing a Thursday and a Monday, right now, PROS is in the beginning of the week. And so is R&I, and perhaps, and PROS is in the morning and we're in the afternoon. So let's say PROS is in the morning and R&I in the afternoon on a Monday, and then finance and policy on a Thursday, or however it works out. But keep the morning meetings in the morning and the afternoon meetings in the afternoon, but on Mondays and Thursdays. So you have a Thursday, a Monday, and a Thursday for meetings, and then the rest of the month, the staff isn't bogged down with meetings. Also, if I can.
Please.
So when we're talking about 1 meeting a month for the board meeting, I checked with AGP when I first came in to see how long it takes them to set up for a meeting. And it takes them about 2 hours to get it all set up and an hour's driving time from Morro Bay. So I think we need to think about what time we want this meeting to start. If we're going to do it 1 meeting a month for the board, because we don't want them to have to leave Morro Bay at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a 9 o'clock meeting. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Dean. Yes, I think taking into consideration the obligation of AGP is really important for sure. So having to find a balance between what time of the day do we start the meetings and then apparently take a break during the middle of the day and then come back. That's probably the most important decision that we need to make here, or at least a discussion, since we're not making a decision. So it might be, I don't know if maybe we could get somebody from AGP to comment on this. Not necessarily the gentlemen that are back there, but perhaps somebody from AGP could comment on what they feel would be best for their staff with regard to what time they would feel comfortable arriving and setting up. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it seems like we should give that some consideration. No?
Thank you. Director Dean.
Okay, one more question, if you don't mind. It says if we have something urgent that needs to come up and we have to have a special meeting, that we would do this with Zoom instead of using AGP. Would we also just be setting up in the dining room rather than setting up all the whole oak furniture setup, which involves F&R's time as well, which we're trying to, cut back on.
Correct, Director Dean. We use the same setup as we do the committee meetings.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good question that Dr. Dean asked about the time, the morning times. And maybe getting feedback from AGP about how they do meetings. I would think they have some morning meetings that they do staff. I don't know if they do. I'm not sure what the schedule of all the various districts and councils, city councils, and everything are, but some do have meetings that start at say 9 or 10 or 9 in the morning sometimes. And I don't know if there's a provision, if AGP comes the night before, sets up or whatever. I don't know. Is there someone here actually? We might as well. Okay, come forward, please. Yeah, just your procedure. If you do you can state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Hank Ogle. I can't really go into too much depth. This is just sort of, we do a lot of state meetings that start at 9 a.m. We usually travel the day before in order to set up. So that's generally our process. As far as setup goes, usually it takes us about 2.5 hours. And that's pretty much all I could say at this time without talking to anybody else. So just letting you know.
So, Dr. Farmer, you can take. Can you take any more questions from us?
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring this up. You can comment if you wish.
Yeah.
The one meeting that I know that starts at 9 in the morning locally is the County Board of Supervisors, but I believe everything that you have that you need is right there. So you don't have to set up anything. It's all of that equipment's already available at the site, correct?
I am not involved with that department, but I believe that is the case.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It sounds to me like this is something that staff needs to discuss in detail with AGP about procedures and timing for morning meetings if they have them, which just going forward. But
we'll reach out to him, President Gray.
Right.
I believe AGP would work with us if we
Yeah.
wanted to start a meeting at a relatively reasonable time. So if there's a 2.5 hour setup time, I don't think it would be impossible for them to get here by 7:30 and have the doors unlocked, and we could kick off a meeting by
10.
Yeah. And again, I think with some of the changes to our reports in terms of shortening our verbal reports, since we spend a lot of time writing the actual written report, that we can just field questions on some of those. We've become a little more efficient in our meetings and kept the pace fairly strong. And then if the board and president wishes, the lunchtime can be cut down to a half an hour versus an hour. So I think there's ways that we still could get out of here at a very reasonable time, even if we're starting at 10 a.m.
Thank you. I was thinking I'd miss a 1 hour lunch, but maybe, yeah. Dr. Thomas, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. Just wanted to point out, having tracked the meeting duration in minutes and the size of the agenda packets for all of the board meetings since we swore in the new general manager, and as you know, I'm one that respects and believes in the use of data. The average meeting has been 6 hours of meeting time per month when you add the 2 meetings, because we have different content in each. And other than skipping the only having 1 Pledge of Allegiance instead of 2. In other words, the intro is very brief. So there's no reason to expect that the duration would be shorter. There is a slight downward trend, but it's we're still looking at 5 to 6 hours on average over the last 6 months. So it does make sense that we start in the morning. It could be either 10 to 4, or it could be 9 to 4. Those are the ranges that do make sense. I would favor the 9 a.m. because then you have a block in the morning and a block in the afternoon, rather evenly split. I understand the challenge with the audiovisual setup, so that's anywhere in that range would be fine. In terms of the standing committee meetings, as Director Dean pointed out, we have two 10 a.m.s and two afternoon meetings. The the pros committee meeting is where it is now on the third week in the afternoon, because we have some working members of the committee that second week of the month is challenging, and the mornings are all challenging. So yeah, we need to be pushed later in the day, and that is why we're in the third week now. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I'm sure staff will coordinate with us. And interested, what is the decision process going to look like to assemble the times and dates? That's a question.
I think Harry
Yeah,
has.
Director Farmer.
I appreciate what Director Thomas just brought up. So we might consider having two meetings the second week of the month, having two more standing committee meetings on the third week of the month, and then having the board meeting on the fourth week of the month, and then leaving the first week free just in case. That would be my take on it. I don't know how anybody else feels, especially from what Director Thomas just said with regard to pros. So that would fit in for them.
Yeah, and I would certainly object to that proposal, because then that doesn't leave much time in between the fourth Thursday and the first.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So if anyone ever wants to go on holiday or visit family, that would be challenging.
No, I just said the fourth Thursday.
The
and
second,
then
third, and fourth. You
Yeah.
filled the second,
So-
third, and fourth Thursdays.
So then you'd have like 2 weeks in between from the end of the, let me see if I can explain this without getting myself and everybody else confused. So you would have the regular board meeting on the fourth Thursday of the month. And then the next time the first committee meetings would take place would be the second meeting of the month. So you would have from Thursday till, you'd have 13 days in between the board meeting and the first committee meetings.
No, it's good. Good alternative to consider,
Yeah.
and I got it the first time. But for staff to consider.
Yeah, I don't want us to get too much into discussion per se. We was sort of question to ask. I want to have public comment first. Do you have a question, Director Dean? Because we'll come back to discussion.
I'll wait till you have public comment, and then I have a couple of things I'd like to ask.
Great, thank you.
President Greg, can I just touch base?
Yes.
Some of the things that we're thinking about staff-wise is lessening the workload or concentrating some of that workload in weeks. So for Ms. Dodson, if we spread it out, that's her posting an agenda every single week in some form or fashion. Also, when we think about bringing things through the subcommittees, we want to time it correctly. So then we're bringing it to the board. And so some of our thoughts would be the things that we bring before our subcommittees that often come to the board for consideration really revolve around resources and infrastructure and the finance committee. So it would make sense to maybe to have those two committees on the same day, and then have those on the third week with the board meeting on the second week. So as things start to flow, they're going through our resources and infrastructure committee and finance committee and being vetted, and then they shift right into a board meeting if they're to be considered. So we also want to be able to have staff be able to take some time off without having meetings in between the weeks, if that makes sense.
Dr. Dean.
And I think that's what I was thinking was a Thursday board meeting, and then the next week, a Monday and a Thursday for standing committee meetings.
Yeah.
And then there's a longer period of time in between the meetings for staff to concentrate on their work and members of the board who want to go someplace to go someplace.
Yeah. I added, I'll a little comment on that later. I want to do public comment now, because also the flow of things between the committees and the board it's important to get the timing right on that. So I'll have more to say to that. I want to do public comment first, though. I have a slip from Christine Heinrichs. Hello, Ms. Heinrichs.
Hello. Yes, thank you. Perhaps monthly oversight of the district's ongoing projects is adequate. Projects such as the Stewart Street tanks, the San Simeon water and effluent lines, the Sustainable Solutions turnkey projects at the wastewater treatment plant, water meter replacement, the coastal development permit application for the EWS, SWS, WRF aren't usually urgent and can be managed monthly. But when an urgent issue arises, the board should have the best quality online access for public participation. Those meetings at which significant action may be taken should be archived in a logical and convenient way for the public to consult. Please require that AGP Video provide the live streaming and video recording and archiving for all board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Ms. Dickinson?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments on this. I do not see in the board agenda packet a day of the month where the board meeting would actually take place. I see 4 dates, 4 items for standing committees, but what day of the month then would the actual board meeting take place? And then the other thing would be going back to the 2 meetings a month. The CCSD met at 12:30 p.m. once a month, and that meeting would generally go for 5.5 hours. I do recall, I'm sure Mr. Carmel does, being there for, but that makes sense. I mean, because there's a lot to pack in. And if we've been doing, as Director Thomas said, he counted up about 6 hours a month. Well, that would be similar because there's a lot to address in this town with all the items, issues that we have confronting us. So the other thing I'm going to say, if staff time is needed and is quite critical, it would seem, then I would say that maybe the general manager could eliminate some of the meetings that he has monthly from 8:30 in the morning till 7 at night. I mean, how productive are they? That's a whole day out of his workload when he also has another position to take care of, another job. So if we're looking at reducing the amount of extra time that staff has to be here, there, and everywhere, I think that is also something that should be considered. We can always email if we have a concern, but I don't think every month for almost 12 hours a day is necessary. Those are my thoughts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Anyone else wish to comment in the hall? Any more online comment?
Elizabeth Benhausen.
Ms. Bettenhausen, please
Thank you.
proceed.
I hope that in this conversation that you're going to have about this proposal, that you discuss the relationship between standing committees and the board. I am not yet convinced that it's a good idea to have standing committees. That is, I don't think they produce enough to merit on the face of it the existence of them. And if you don't have standing committees, you cut out a lot of the work of the staff in terms of setting up. I say this in part because I have stopped listening to most of the standing committees. I read the reports on them and don't find myself edified. And I am not edified by what the community thinks in attending them either much, because nothing happens that is meritorious or solidified or any other positive word you might think of. So please give this some serious thought, not passive thought, not incidental thought, some serious thought about whether you need standing committees or how often they need to meet, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bettenhausen. Take it back to the board here for further discussion. We're not going to have a motion, but we're trying to give the staff a clear idea where we might be headed with this. So anybody want to start? And Vice President Scott, not okay. You can always raise your hand or whatever. That's it. Okay. Anybody? Dr. Dean.
Does the Meet the GM day really take up a lot of staff time? To me, it's the general manager's time, and he is still working while he's doing the Meet the GM day. And it gives more access to the general manager from the public. And that was the whole point of doing it, is so members of the community who don't attend meetings or don't want to attend meetings but have questions can walk in and sit down and talk to him. So I don't think that that is a imposition on the staff's time. Just
Thank you.
wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director
This
Dean.
general manager has brought more transparency and public communication with the district than any general manager we have ever had. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dean. I just open the doors and come down and bring my laptop and do the same things I would do in my office.
Mhm.
So I just try to bring it down here and I extend the hours in case I do have lots of visitors. So I still get in a solid 8 to 9 hours worth of work, even if I'm stepping away for 15, 20, 30 minutes to have sidebar conversations with the public. I don't mind it. Mrs. Dodson comes down and takes notes for me, and she does a lot of her work. I couldn't get her to stop working if I tried, so it doesn't matter if she's here or at home. Staff time is minimal. We
Yeah.
we set up a few tables and we break out the coffee, and I think Director Dean spends more time on baking cookies than we do
You spent a lot of
not
time making
working. So
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to return to that topic I briefly mentioned before public comment about the flow of proposals, business through the standing committees to the board and maybe back. The thing I want to watch for on the scheduling of the standing committee meetings is whether if they interface properly with the board meetings for items that have to come to the board at a certain time. I'm thinking of budgets primarily, especially budgets. And that you get if the finance committee is going to have responsibility for, going over the preliminary budget, especially, which is the more complicated process, and then the final budget, they have to get the budget in virtually finished form, in time to give their input on it, and then, get it ready for the board agenda. It's usually a couple of weeks is the comfortable margin, but you don't want to have the meeting too early, because then the finance manager is under extreme pressure to get the budget done. So I guess you have to consider what would be the optimal time, and maybe Director Dean can talk about R&I the same way. There's certain things that the board has to deal with at a certain point. Sometimes it's a legal deadline. Sometimes you just want to get it done. You want the committee to have a look at it and be able to weigh in with advice, but you don't want to, make that so early that the proposal isn't fully formed, and don't want to make it so late that the board doesn't have time to get it on the agenda. So everything has to kind of mesh fairly precisely, I think.
yeah, thank you, President. Great. I mean, we're sharing the calendar and may not help you a lot from this distance. Maybe Mrs. Dodds can zoom it in a bit. But so what we were thinking is the second week of the month on that Thursday, hold the board meeting, with the subsequent Thursday having two of our standing committee meetings. Primarily, our thoughts are finance and resources and infrastructure, because they typically are the ones that produce a lot more input on board agenda items. Not that prose isn't important or policy, but typically our heavier hitting agenda items that need to be vetted through our subcommittees are coming through R&I and finance. So with that, following that third Thursday, holding those two subcommittee meetings, that would give staff approximately 3 weeks to then work on those recommendations, have the staff reports ready, vetted not only by the staff that's creating them, then through the general manager, and then through Mr. Carmel, district council, and they will be ready in time to post. Then one of the other thoughts was perhaps a Monday for the remaining two committees. I mean, staff's so open to that. We could keep it all on Thursdays or have another day like a Monday for Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Policy, and that could perhaps be the what did we just say? The first Monday in the month. It's open for discussion, but as far as big as flow through the board itself, our primary concern would be finance and resources and infrastructure. So we thought the best flow would be that following Thursday following the board meeting, which is what we had targeted was the second week in the month.
Dr. Dean.
So possibly Thursday board, Monday pros and policy, Thursday R&I and finance.
Correct.
Okay, and the other thing is, we talk about what our availability is for our current standing committee members from the public. We also have to remember that all of the standing committee members have to reapply, and their applications are taken in consideration with all the applications that are provided for the public. So they will have the opportunity to decide whether, once we know what committees are going to meet on what day and when, they can decide what their availability is when they apply.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct. Dr. Farmer.
Yeah, it's just going to take a moment. When I was mentioning earlier about having the board meeting on the fourth Thursday of the month, I was only saying that because when I first got on the board and we had one meeting a month, it was on the fourth Thursday. But now that the general manager's clarified why it might be best to have that meeting on the second week of the month and have it first out of the chute, so to speak, that makes perfect sense. So thank you.
And Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. I hear two themes which are like passing ships in the night. I hear Director Dean talking about a second, the second Thursday board meeting, and then the following Monday, and then the following Thursday, a set of meetings in that third week. I hear the general manager talking about a second Thursday board meeting, a following Thursday set of standing committee meetings, and then as the fourth or the first week of the month, another set of meetings. And those are distinctly different. And I would favor something closer to what Director Dean is describing, and also consider and perhaps and currently policy and pros are both in the afternoon, finance and R&I are both in the mornings. The proposal to put R&I and finance on the same day, likely one of them are happy to switch. And I don't know about, the policy committee, but certainly the pros committee, as currently configured. And I'm quite aware that yes, in January, we have the opportunity for new members, but we should make these in consideration to those who are on the team now. And so I do want to make the case for pros to have that afternoon slot, and I think we would prefer the third week rather than the fourth or the first week month.
Okay. Mr. McElhinney, comment on that.
My apologies, Dr. Thomas. We're going in circles and a little lost a little train of thought. So ultimately, we're trying to condense the amount of meetings per month and give a longer break in between that allows for preparation for staff reports. So you're spot on in saying that in the second week of the month is our board meeting on that Thursday. The following week on a Monday and Thursday, we wrap up the committee meetings, and that still provides time on no matter what committee needs something to come before the board. It gives us a decent amount of gap to circle back around and have it well prepared for the agendas and staff reports. Additionally, it also allows the rotation flip-flopping if you want to have pros and finance on the same day and R&I and policy on the same day. Those that want to do morning and evening will flush out. It's still within the third week, which still gives us time to process the recommendations back to the following board meeting. So my apologies, spot on.
Thank you. Yes. Dr. Dean.
R&I meets in the afternoon for the same reason. You're meeting in the afternoon. We have people that work. But is it possible to have two meetings in an afternoon if one meeting starts at 1 and the other starts at 3:15?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or one starts at noon and the other one starts at 2:30 instead of doing a morning and afternoon on one of those days? And yes, I'd like to take into consideration the people we already have, but this isn't going to begin until next year, correct?
Right. Well, I have a suggestion on that. And first of all, also finance is in the morning. So if it's finance and R&I, we could do a morning and afternoon, just like we do on different days now and during the same day. I was going to suggest though, in line with what you're saying, I don't know if this is, if all the chairs of the committees can want to do this, but you might want to get some feedback from the current members as to what their times of availability are.
Already have.
And good, and give them some suggestions. What we're thinking about, sounds like what we're thinking about here is a Thursday, no, sorry, a third week of the month, Monday, 2 meetings on Monday, I think pros and policy, and that Thursday of that meeting, the third Thursday of the month, morning R&I, and morning finance and afternoon R&I, and just get the sense of whether there be problems with that. And let's see, we'll just see. Maybe we might have to tweak the schedule. Maybe a different day. It might not be a Thursday. It might be Wednesday or Friday even, something like that. But it's good to get the members' feedback because presumably, not all, but probably most of the people now serving on committees will be available, will want to serve. They'll reapply, and it generally happens. Not many people enter that process from the outside. In other words, it's mainly the people who are already there reapplying, and pretty much they get chosen again. Not always, but so we wanted to make sure we're not basically driving everybody away, with the change and have to have a whole new committees. I don't think that would happen. But we want to make sure it doesn't happen. So I don't know. We're not taking a vote or anything on this, but I wanted to maybe play facilitator. Also, Vice President Scott, did you have anything you wanted to? Yeah,
Yes,
please. Yeah.
So you just said the second Thursday board meeting. Is it the second week or is it the second Thursday? So for instance, in August, the second Thursday would be the 8th, which would be today.
Mhm.
Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the 15th?
Oh, I see. Well, I think it would be the second. Yeah, I think it would be the second Thursday. So
Okay.
it could be as early as the 8th or as late
Okay.
as the 14th.
Okay, great. And I will put this on my agenda for our next meeting and talk with them about that.
That's good. Dr. Dean.
I don't know when you want to bring this back for some more discussion, but my R&I meeting is Monday and my agenda is already done. So it's going to be another month before I can bring it to R&I.
Oh, well, my next meeting is in September, so yeah, we have some time on that because the staff I think has to work out some of the. If I had to sort of sum up our discussion, we can't forget the AGP angle, that finding out what they can do to facilitate a morning meeting. I would prefer, and I think I'm with Dr. Thomas on this, given the length that a meeting can have, it doesn't always have, but a month's worth of work can take up to 6 hours. We can be pretty brisk about it, but there might be some things just to have a lot of discussion going on with the public and everything like that. So we have to be ready for that. And starting with a nice, healthy 2.5 hours in the morning of business, dealing with business, and then having a lunch and coming back, to me, is the ideal. And of course, you can use the lunch hour for closed session. That's the ideal. That to me is what I'd like to see. If we can't do it at 9, maybe 10, but that's pushing it a little bit because we don't want to be here, late in the day when everybody's very tired, and we don't have that situation. So that's something we have to work out. I think, see if, I don't know what AGP would do if they come here the night before and set up or whatever, but there might be a possibility we could work something out with that. It might cost a little more money, but it'd still save us money. Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. McElhaney, did you?
I was just going to tell you, President Gray, we're going to reach out to AGP here in the next 15, 20 minutes.
And I guess the other question we want an answer to is, one, does it work for the committee members to go on a schedule, which sounds like we're narrowing in on third week of the month for committee meetings, the third week or the week after the week after the first Thursday of the month. This month it would be next week. Yeah.
Yeah, second Thursday.
Second, yeah. Sorry, the first week after the second Thursday. Yeah. It's like election calendar. So we're homing in on that, and we want to get feedback from the current committee members as to what would work for them as for days of those weeks, and also make sure and focus on having two, rather than the proposal and agenda in item 4A, 2 separate days to divide up the 4 standing committee meetings. So I think, does that sum it up pretty well? Yeah. Director Farmer. Yeah, Director Farmer.
This got just confusing enough that it reminded me of when you're interacting with somebody and you need to meet with them, but you don't really want to. You just say, "I'll see you the second Tuesday of next week." Like right there, they're not really, you know.
I think they understand you, but they don't realize afterwards that was just total
right,
nonsense.
just trying to create a little humor. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Try it sometime. Any further discussion of this?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bob Lloyd with AGP.
Oh, Bob, how are you?
How are
Yeah.
you, sir? I'm sorry. I was trying to get involved with this meeting, and I understand you have some questions concerning processes for our involvement for morning meetings.
Yeah.
So go ahead with your question.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe General Manager McElhaney can ask the question. This is Bob.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. So we're looking at some start times for holding one meeting a month. Currently, the range in terms of starting times sounds preferable for the board to start at 9 a.m. With as late as 10 a.m. And we were just curious about setup time for AGP and if a 9 a.m. is doable.
9 a.m. is doable. You know, of course, we are at the whim of the board and are always happy to accommodate in any way, shape, or form. We would get there at about 7 a.m. To get our equipment set up and get configured for everything. So that is not a particular problem for us. And for one meeting a month, yes, you will be probably talking about maybe a 5 or 6 hour meeting. But we would be happy to accommodate anything that would need to happen. 10 a.m. would be better for us, although I'm an early riser. So whatever the board decides, of course, we will accommodate.
Well, maybe 9. We'll see. We'll see what you can work out with our general manager. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions, Dr. Farmer?
Yeah, I just want to thank Bob. I know he's getting one day closer to retirement, and he's the man. So thank you for joining in, Bob. Have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you very much.
I thank you so much, and have a good night.
Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you, President Gray. I just wanted to reiterate what you described, because it's a little bit different than what I was thinking initially, and it's worth restating. What I'm hearing is the concept that's being floated is the second Thursday would be the board meeting. That's easy to find, the second Thursday of every month, period. But the committee meetings, rather than calling them the third Monday or third Thursday, because due to the vagaries of the first day of the month, that would be a mess. So what you're saying is it would be the Monday and Thursday following the board meeting. And that would not necessarily be, that would sometimes be the second Monday, sometimes it would be the third Monday. And so that is what you're floating, correct?
And that's good advice for when we updated bylaws. We make a calendar. When you've got a calendar, of course, in place, the dates are all up there. You don't have to, but yeah, as a way of stating the policy for scheduling, that's a good way to do it. And we will have to obviously redo the bylaws. Yeah. Thank you. Any further discussion? I get ready to go to the next items, which are the committee and liaison reports. 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, and 5E. There's one, I'll take public comment for any of them at this time. And I believe that Christine Heinrichs wants to speak on 5C, which is the pros committee report. Right.
Thank you. Mr. Geary in his report mentions working with biological consultant Kevin Merck. What is the status of Mr. Merck's biological studies, which were due 2 years ago, and Mr. Green promised in June? When can the public expect to see these long overdue studies, which are a crucial element of the EWS, SWF, WRF coastal development permit application, which remains incomplete? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment? on any of these reports?
No.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Questions or comments or amplifications of the report? Dr. Thomas?
I just feel compelled to kind of recognize my fellow directors for the quality of the reports. It's very useful and a fair amount of depth on the concepts that were discussed. As I've stated before, I would aspire in the future to have more context in board minutes on a similar frame. That would perhaps be a future agenda item, but just recognizing as I read, each of these reports, I really understand the more of the context, and it's very excellent reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Farmer?
Thank you, President Gray. I'd just like to ask Vice President Scott, who is the chair of the policy committee. So I noticed that under subcommittee reports with regard to a change for the climate change policy, and it's becoming the climate adaptation policy. I don't necessarily question the change in the title, but I'm just wondering, and I apologize for not taking the time to watch the meeting and have this question answered myself, but considering if anybody's paying any attention, it's a climate crisis throughout the entire planet. I realize all we can do is make certain, as you mentioned here, certain adaptations with regard to our small sphere of influence. But during the course of discussing this particular topic, did anyone express the concern of, well, we really are in a crisis or an emergency, even though we're just using the term adaptation? Did that enter into the discussion at all, what I just said?
Vice President Scott?
Yeah. Thank you, Director Harry. Thank you.
Great. Director Farmer?
Yes, Director Farmer.
Oh, Director Harry, sure, that's fine too.
Yeah. That did come up. And when we look at a policy, then we look at what is it that we can set in policy to do in relation to a climate crisis. So I think that's why we settled on the climate adaptation policy. That was recommended by the ad hoc committee that put together the basis for the policy, which will be coming back to the next meeting. They did an excellent job putting together some of the basic premises that we want to look at, and that was their recommendation.
Well, I know you have good folks on that ad hoc committee, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other, Dr. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, President Gray, and Director Pharma also. And I appreciate you bringing this point up. And when I reflect on the members of the policy committee and the passion these individuals have to address the climate crisis, I'm very confident in their passion on this subject. And yes, it's a climate crisis, but we're not creating a crisis policy. And so we're creating a policy and an adaptation, a policy and a plan regarding our response, which are addressing two things. One, what are we going to do to lessen our impact, increasing the crisis? And two, how are we going to adapt to the consequences of the climate change? So in my opinion, they got it right. I really like what they've done with the name. It does not lessen the fact that we're in hot water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Dean.
Okay, I just wanted to say that in my report, I have in here that the Zero Liquid Discharge pilot project will be coming back at this meeting, and it will be the September meeting because we are waiting for the contract from Global Water, as well as a couple of more pieces of information. So I am hoping that possibly we can get Mr. Easter back to answer a couple of more questions, both from the committee and the public. So that will be September's meeting, not Monday's meeting. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other comments, questions, or? Okay. We'll move on to our final item, which is future agenda items. Does anyone on the board want to propose an agenda item that is not yet on the agenda? Maybe let's start, since this is the first meeting of the month. Ms. Dodson, you can go through the list of what's on tap for the next meeting.
Sure, for
Yeah.
September.
So but August 15th is September. Yeah.
I don't have August 15th up at the
September.
moment. It'll be posted
Okay.
tomorrow
So
morning.
September is good. Yeah.
Yeah, September. Discussion and consideration of the strategic plan update. Discussion and consideration of accepting the transfer station for the San Simeon Creek stream gauge at Palmer Flats from the San Luis Obispo Flood Control and Water Conservation District. Discussion and consideration of approval of a consultant services agreement for preparation of plans and specifications for the Cambria Skate Park. And discussion and consideration of approval of a consultant services agreement with SWICA. Consideration to approve a revision to the general manager position description. Discussion and consideration of accepting a grant from the San Luis Obispo County Air Pollution Control District for the installation of 8 DC fast chargers. And discussion and consideration of updates to the standing committee bylaws.
Thank you. Anything, Dr. Farmer?
Thank you, President Gray. This isn't necessarily a future agenda item, but I just want to follow up on something that Ms. Heinrichs requested earlier with regard to maybe getting a little bit more clarification or an update on the work that Merck is doing in their studies that are maybe a little bit behind. So if in hearing about that, so and in perhaps whatever they're doing. So if Mr. Green, Utilities Manager Green, could just give us an update at the next meeting on that. And also, I understand the discussion we had earlier with regard to not reading written public comment. Can we perhaps address that issue again, not trying to put Ms. Dotson in a difficult position, but maybe finding another way of having written comment read at meetings for the public to know. And not everybody's going to go to our website to find out what written comment is. And like we said, we do have public comment here at the meeting. I'd appreciate the opportunity to hear what written public comment is at the meeting personally. And if we could figure out another way that it could be done. And I totally understand Ms. Dodson feeling uncomfortable with this. I know this is going to sound really funny that I'm even suggesting this, but I'd be more than happy to read them without any bias at all. So I'm just putting that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Taken under consideration. Vice President Scott, you were going to speak? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to add possibly in the future, and we can talk about this more at agenda review meeting, but the policy committee was requesting that the board think about if there is a desire to have a lighting policy regarding lighting on CCSD properties only, since that's what we have as far as our jurisdiction. So we'll talk about it more at agenda review, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. It's an old topic that keeps coming back, but I think we took a swipe at that back in about 2 years ago, and it didn't. I think we were saying the county has to come up with new standards or whatever. I mean, we'll see what happens, but we'll consider it for we can certainly consider it for another visit.
I'm not looking at basically the dark skies initiative. I'm just looking at for us on our properties.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we can. I think we can bring that back at some point soon. Any other suggested agenda items? Dr. Thomas.
I just wanted to chime in on Director Farmer's comment. As I was reflecting, as he's bringing up finding another way, thinking, well, who would be responsible for the public comments? Well, who are the elected officers? Well, that's us as directors. So if someone is going to read the public comments, it ought to be the directors. And I think Director Farmer's idea is a good one, and we could take turns. I think it would be appropriate, and I think that would be the direction I would lean.
Yeah.
I would
Thank you.
think the president of the board would be the one to read public comment.
We'll see. We'll see if that, yeah, we can talk about that. Speaking of public comment, is there anybody who wishes to comment on this agenda item?
No.
No one online and nobody in the hall here. Okay, great. I think,
Or I'll make this comment. President Gray could delegate who reads the written comment. There you go.
right. Okay, yes, we'll have further discussion of that, extensive discussion, I'm sure, in our agenda review, right? Okay, all kidding aside, I think it's time to adjourn this meeting, but thank you all for coming. And thank you for bearing with me on my delay. Thank you very much.